Good evening, Tucson. How's every little thing? Well, it looks like we all made it to the end of another Wednesday, the humpiest of all days. And now it's time to put up your feet, let down your hair, and tune in to Tucson's freshest, free-range, locally grown, hand-picked, artisanal talk show. I'm your host, Luc Rollin Goodhart, and we are broadcasting live from the Creative Tucson studio in beautiful downtown Tucson. Thanks so much for tuning in. I've got some awesome guests to talk to today. Actually, truth be told, I only invited one of my guests today, but since I'm such a gregarious host, the invitations to my show always come with a +1. So not only do I have a guest, but my guest has a guest. How about that? Has that ever been done? I feel like we're blazing new paths here, and I'm so glad you're all joining us for this off-road talk show adventure. At least I hope it's off-road. It might just be off the rails, but we'll see. Anyway, I'd like to introduce my guest. She's a bit of a Renaissance woman. She's a chef, a mixologist, a performer, a woodworker, a world traveler. Am I missing anything here? Of course, I'm talking about the glamorous and multi-talented Luoyi Hsieh. Give her a big old Goodnight Goodhart welcome, studio audience. Thank you, studio audience. So good to have you here. Thank you for coming in today. And just to Luoyi's right, we have, well, he's your guest. Why don't you introduce him? Who the hell is this guy?
This is Mo Madril, who owns Geronimo's food truck in Tucson. And he is generally parked outside at Hsieh's, but you can also find him at Crooked Tooth,
Crooked Tooth every other Tuesday, and we hop around to different events around town wherever we can.
Absolutely.
Right on, right on. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So how's it going? What'd you guys do today?
Packed.
Oh. Packed? Where are you off to?
I am off to Portland in 12 hours.
12 hours?
In 12 hours.
What are you heading to Portland for?
I am going to sit in a bathtub with a book.
Right on.
Besides that, I have a collaboration with a chef friend that I know from out there.
Super fun.
So we're going to come up with some recipes together.
Awesome. Little collab, little vacation.
Absolutely.
Little bathtub book time.
Yeah.
Sounds bitchin'. I'm super jealous, actually. And what about you? What'd you get into today?
Just running around my Tuesday, Wednesday kind of stuff, picking up supplies, prepping up for the weekend. So just coming out of the prep kitchen, come say what's up to you guys.
Sweet. Awesome. So just wanted to get a little background about you guys. I mean, obviously you're, proud Tucsonans now, but is Tucson home? Are you originally from here, or where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California.
Right on.
Right in between Torrance and Redondo Beach.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I grew up as a super beach bunny. Hung out pretty much on the shores.
I can see that.
Every day.
I can see that.
There was a time I used to like to be in the sun. Everyone who knows me now knows that I don't.
Now we cower from the sun.
Yeah. And I grew up there with my family. I went through all of grade school there. And then right when I turned 18, I went to South America.
How long are you in South America?
Just for that year. And then by the time I was 19 and a half, I was here in Tucson.
Right on. And what about yourself?
Born and raised Tucsonan.
Born and raised.
Proud to be here.
Yeah. So you're originally from here. You came here. What is it that drew you to Tucson, and what is it that keeps you in Tucson? If that makes sense.
Yeah. What keeps me here is just Tucson. I don't know what it is about it. This is home. Someone once told me the best part about Tucson is coming back to Tucson. You can't come back unless he leaves, but everyone always ends up coming back. And so that's always kind of stuck in my head. And then it's kind of, being in the cooking scene and knowing friends here, it's just desert's home. Like, there's no place like it.
Hell yeah, I totally get that. I always, I've traveled a certain amount, lived other places, but it always feels so freaking good to come back to Tucson. Just step off the plane or out of the car, and it's like, ah, yes.
It's so dry and hot. I love
so
it.
Dry and so hot.
Oh, we should cheers. Salud, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To Tucson.
Tucson.
What an awesome place to be. And so, Luoyi, what was it that drew you to Tucson? When you said you were 19?
Yes, I was 19. So
okay.
that was 1999.
1999, a very fine year.
It was a wonderful year. I had just gotten back from Brazil, and then I already knew before I'd left that I didn't want to stay in Los Angeles anymore. Like, I love my family, but I come from a lovely, wonderful, but yet very conservative family. So I'm a pastor's kid. And so I needed a little bit of separation. So basically, I just sort of chose a place. Somewhere like not too far, but just far enough.
Really, it was really just random.
It was pretty random. I was just
Interesting.
like somewhere where it'd be easy for my parents to see that I could get into school. Somewhere, which at the time
Was important.
yeah, but to them, right? So to let me go, and so yeah, I had my little Civic and I drove out here and I stayed. So,
Did you know anyone here, or you were just like, I'm packing up the Civic and I'm hitting the road?
There was one person I knew out here from my time in the past racing cars in LA as a teenager, but he didn't stay here, so like
So
I
you
just ended up here.
Showed up on our doorstep and
did.
immediately started
Yeah.
meowing and pawing at the door, and we let you in because you're so cute and awesome.
Yeah.
Word.
So yeah, and then from there, I realized Tucson's a really good home base to have. You know, I traveled a lot over the last 20 years. You know, and it's a great place to always come back to.
Yeah.
Also, the community here is
Totally.
amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Tucson.
I know.
Aren't you
I
just
know.
darling? So I'm curious how both of you kind of got your start cooking with food and drink. Like, what was there someone like in your child? Did you start cooking from a young age, or was it something you came to later, or like, kind of what was the initial spark for that?
Mine started as a little kid. My dad owned the Longhorn Grill south of Tucson in Amado, Arizona. So I was
Wait,
there.
the one with the
big steer
big horns?
Yeah.
That place is like famous.
Yeah, so we hung out there as a kid, watched him build the entire thing, and by the time I was
Wow.
8 years old, I was like, I want to work, like I want to do that. So I started busting tables, and from there just kind of kept poking around, made my way into the kitchen, started turning pizza. We actually had a restaurant before that. There was Vesuvio's Pizzeria in Nogales, Arizona. It was when I was a little kid, and that's when I first started turning pie for sure. And so I've just always kind of been in the restaurant industry.
Cool. So you just grew up in restaurants
Yeah, I just
and
grew up in
loved
restaurants,
it.
loved it. Thought I wanted to get away from it for a while, but then, you know, one thing led to another and just drew me back.
Awesome. Awesome. What about yourself?
I think the first time I started cooking for myself was, I was a precocious little weird child. And I decided when I was about 10, 11 years old that I would be vegetarian. Coming from my family, that was not a very acceptable thing, to the point where they would hide meat underneath the rice
Oh my God.
of the little rice bowl. and
That's so
stuff to
sneaky.
Yeah, because they were like, "You're not a monk." What is going on? So that was when I started cooking more for myself. And then from then on, it just sort of slowly trickled into like doing recipes. But then my grandmother was well known for her sense of flavor and smell. And so she started teaching me what we call in Chinese 调味, which is to, you don't do recipes, you tweak something until the flavor is correct. Essentially is what it means in Chinese.
Interesting. So it's more of just that kind of intuitive sense of flavor and kind of composing something.
And she would teach me all these kind of things, and she was blind by then. So everything really was just a sense of smell and flavor.
So she had always had kind of like an amazing sense, but then when
Yes.
she lost her vision, that became even more acute.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Wow. Right on. What do you have like an earliest memory of cooking? I mean, you kind of mentioned turning pies when you were younger. That was a pretty great story about your grandma. Or is there like a particular moment you remember where it was like, this is what I want to do, or like, I really love this?
Like, are you talking about earliest memory? Like when you're this big?
Yeah, like that, that high.
Yeah, it's a little quite short. For me, I would say it was Good Shepherd Preschool.
Okay.
My teacher was Mrs. Lello, who always wore the color yellow.
So this is the beginning of like a children's book.
I was 2.5 years old. I started school pretty early. And she taught me to make Jell-O.
Oh. That's what flavor Jell-O? Was it yellow Jell-O? Mrs. Lillo's yellow Jell-O. Say that
Lemon yellow
fast.
Jell-O.
I know. I think it was green.
Green?
I feel like it was
Just
green.
a classic lime Jell-O.
Classic lime Jell-O.
Classically styled lime
Yeah.
Jell-O.
And then now that's graduated into making Jell-O shots. So really taken it, done good
Bring
stuff
it full
with
circle. Thank you, Mrs. Lello. We owe you for so much. And what about you?
I don't know. I could always imagine, like, remember being in the kitchen. I guess one moment was like I remember making breakfast for like my family, really, really young, and I think me and my sister just burnt the eggs. We totally ruined breakfast. And,
like flour
yet everyone still like ate it. And like, oh, that was really good. But like, I think back, I'm like, that was probably
You managed to
horrible.
burn a bowl of cereal. Even the milk, that's impossible. Right on.
We've come a long way.
Absolutely. So, did either of you, have a formal culinary education? Did you go to culinary school, or?
I did not.
You did not?
I did not.
And what about yourself?
I did.
You did?
Yes. I
Okay.
went ahead and made the leap and put myself in debt for
Right
all the
on.
good.
And how was that experience for you?
It was good. I really enjoyed it. I got to go to the Art Institute Tucson when it was still open and when Bill Tsai was still there, and it was really, really awesome. I had a great time, learned a lot, as much as, you can pick up, and really everyone there was just kind of feeling what they were more into, and like, so me, I was just everywhere, and I was so curious about everything, and really what I learned from it was just science. Like, I really got fascinated with the science of cooking, how things work, and why potatoes do this in this situation. So that's really what I took from it, and I really, really feel honored to have.
Awesome. And then for yourself, was it more of just like a self-education? Did you have like a mentor, or you kind of just like?
I had a few.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had a really, really good opportunity in a lot of places that I worked. I mean, a lot of food is a little bit more informal training. Some of it a little bit more formal. With beverage, more formal training for sure. You know, and having been in this industry, back of the house and front of the house for the last 20 years, like the best experience that I had was working one-on-one with someone. That was amazing. Like I had a great opportunity to work for this little company in Portland, Maine, about half a decade ago, and it was just they made soup. It was all about soup. We made 92 quarts at one time, at any given time. But they also allowed you to be like, hey, you want to go ahead? Do you want to make a special for this week? But they taught me a lot of stuff when it came to like, roux and slurries and just all the kind of soups, because I know Asian soup, but to be able to make a good like ribollita, right, which is a super Tuscan soup, or to make beer and cheese soup. I've never done that before.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. I actually do make a mean beer and cheese soup.
Really?
So we might have to have a little beer and cheese cook-off
I would love that.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Getting a little too warm at this time of year. We're gonna have to wait till next winter.
I don't know. It might be okay. I don't really want to drink gazpacho just yet. So.
Not just yet. I'm not ready.
I'm not
ready
ready.
for gazpacho yet. Just a few more weeks of cool weather, please.
But yeah, it was so many. It was a lot of opportunities, and travel was the big part that made me see a lot of stuff. Being able to see how paella was made, in Spain. To see how people like to just do rolls of meat in Austria. And yet, like to me, all of it was delicious. And to be able to learn whether in people's homes or in chefs' kitchens, just even in these very small instances.
Yeah.
Was a great. Like I feel so fortunate
Awesome.
to have that opportunity.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you both have like a particular philosophy about cooking? I mean, do you see it as an art form? Is it more practical? Is there like some kind of like, I don't know, base philosophy that you have about food and drink, or is it more just like experimentation and?
For me, it's just experimentation. What I'm kind of into at the moment, what I'm kind of feeling, the vegetables that are in season, kind of what I'm just reading about too. So there's something, if I'm watching a documentary, something that seems interesting to me. Like right now, I'm all about like outside cooking. How do we cook in like a pit? How do we just make a fire and like roast some, like open roast things? Like what can we do, and what pushes the limit of what's interesting and what's kind of like, I don't know, mainstream to me. So I'm always kind of curious for what's new to come, I guess, like as far as what's growing at the farmers markets and in Tucson. Like I get the honors of working with the organization called Flowers and Bullets, where we focus on doing like neighborhood sustainability and promoting our neighborhoods and our youth to grow and be like, hey, you can do whatever you want. Like there's no limits to that whatsoever, but it all kind of starts with the ground. Like how do we treat the soil to make it grow, and then how do we grow our people from there? So like my cooking's really based on that. Like, how do we start from the very ground up and build it?
road any more than it
Right.
is. So.
I'm really excited about what's going on right now. Like, things are happening. People are excited about food. I just constantly hearing about people talking about different restaurants and what's going on. That excites me that people are talking, period. I always say it's kind of weird when you hear about a new restaurant that goes up, good or bad. If you don't hear anything at all, that's the weirdest part, because Tucson's, it's a weird place. We're desert people. Like, we definitely are lizards, and we have one side or the other. We see things, and so being around bars and stuff, you hear so many people talk, this is good or this is bad, but if you hear nothing, it's kind of weird.
Right.
So I'm really just like stoked, just because there's so many people coming out, and you say it's a little bit oversaturated, but Tucson's a place where, like, if we get oversaturated with water, there's no time before it's gone. Like, we get it in abundance, and when it comes, we love it, but it will weed itself out, and that's the cool thing about Tucson, in my opinion.
Yeah, people care about food here and care how it's grown, where it's coming from. Yeah.
You get support, you got support, not a problem.
Absolutely. So are there any like particular chefs or bartenders or restaurants or ingredients that you're obsessed with right now? I mean, you were talking a little bit about this earlier, but yeah, like what's flipping your wig and tickling your fancy right now?
And honestly, a lot of stuff that like Eric Stanford's doing with Pivot Produce and like stuff we get out of there as often as I can is just really cool. That's probably one of the most exciting things happening to me right now. The fact that Eric Stanford's going out there and sourcing local food from farmers markets and bringing it back to chefs and making it easier for us to have to go to the farmers market, sourcing our ingredients. He goes out and he does it for us, and he brings it back and he's like, this is what I got this week, guys. And we're able just to get our fresh produce from local, you know, within 100 miles usually.
Awesome. So it's sort of taking on the legwork and making it really accessible for chefs, restaurateurs to be using these amazing local resources, but without like breaking their backs running around town trying to get all the resources. That's awesome. What about you? What's up?
I'm actually really excited about what's happening with our beverage programs here in Tucson. The fact that we have like a pretty strong like USBG chapter, you know, United States Bartenders Guild, you know, where everyone sort of looks out for each other. People out of Tucson are competing both in Tucson, in Arizona, and nationally. I think has been like a great thing for us, because I feel like, you know, like anything that we do, when it comes to eating, there's drinking.
Sure.
Like really, it comes it comes hand in hand. And I think it's really exciting the things that are happening with a lot of the women here in town. Like for a long time, there weren't a lot of exposure to the women who are amazing bartenders, and now more and more, like that's becoming a
It's
thing.
like less of a boys' club.
Less of a boys' club, you know? And at the same time, the boys are open to it. You know, it's like everyone's sort of working together. And that's been really exciting, I think, for everybody.
So sounds like you're talking, there's like the community among
Exactly.
bartenders, mixologists is just super strong here.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. So you both kind of have like an alternative approach. Like you don't have a traditional restaurant, you know, you don't have the normal brick and mortar. You do a lot of pop-ups.
Yes.
You have a food truck, Geronimo's Revenge, which can be seen where again? At
Shay's Lounge, usually it's Thursday through Sunday, hop around different spots around town, so.
So yeah, what is the appeal of that format? I mean, I think I read an interview with you where you were sort of, when you were in culinary school, you were sort of frustrated with this feeling that, you know, you kept being told, oh, the only way you're going to make it is in like resorts or like, you know, that kind of. What is it about the food truck or the pop-up? I mean, why have those become so popular, and what is the appeal for you two for that kind of alternative format?
For me, it's kind of just being rebellious. Like I've always been a little bit rebellious. So like, the truck doesn't have any limits. Like pretty much what you have on board is what you have. Like once you leave the kitchen, what's in your refrigerator, what's in your ice chest is all you have to work with. So like I talk about like Geronimo's Revenge, like it's about Geronimo fighting for this land so we can eat and survive from it. But not only that, my revenge on like what I was told I was supposed to do. So I'm always trying to find different limits to push how we can do different pop-ups. So like today I was at Dalbach Distillery discussing with them for a pop-up dinner we're gonna do. So we're gonna pair Dalbach whiskey and cocktails with nice 4 to 5 course meal at the distillery on Chinaware and nice elegant kind of way and our Tucson kind of way. But you know, why are we limited to only selling on the street corners? Like, no, we don't have to. We have this awesome piece of equipment here, and we can do nice pop-up dinners at different locations. So like, being rebellious and be able to do whatever I want is kind of what appeals to me. Definitely, I'm not limited by a brick and mortar being on being just there. I'd be like, this corner doesn't work out, I load up my stuff, I go to the next one, I find a spot that works for us.
The gypsy nomad. I dig that.
Gypsy chefs.
And what about you? I mean, you've done a lot of sort of one-off pop-up kind of things.
Yeah, one-off pop-ups and little collaborations with people. For me,
That seems to be a strong thread with you, the collaboration.
well, it's fun to work with people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like doing the thing with Darren was wonderful, Darren Clark, with the Senses project.
Sure.
You know, so I did the food for sound, I did the food for taste, and he and I collaborated together to
Talk
do the
a little bit more
taste.
about that project for people who don't know.
Absolutely. So I only did those two, but there were more than that. The first one we did with sound was eliminating sound from people. So you're taking away that sense. Okay, so everyone wore headphones with earbuds in, and then there are things like heartbeats pumping through, and that's what you would hear. And then during that time, it's being able to eat things, experience things when it came to the feeling of sound, right? When you eat something crunchy, or when you eat something chewy, it sounds really different in your head when you can't hear anything. With taste, it was Darren and I paired up together, both of us cooking with some lovely sous chefs that came by. And we did, I think it was about 19 courses. Little bites of things.
Yes.
Some of it was liquidy, some of it wasn't. All of it was different. It was like to mix flavors together.
Right.
You know.
So
I served everything from beef tongue to.
I was at
So
that
what have
event.
you.
It was really wild. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I like the flavored pieces of wood. What were those? Those were like infused
people were sucking on
with
wood. That just.
sucking on wood. Well, I can't identify with that at all.
But yeah, we did everything. I use rehydrate basil seeds and tapioca as like a little shooter, you know, with like chili and spiced black tea. You know, just like things like that is really, really fun. So for me, when it comes to doing pop-ups, one, almost zero limitations. The main limitations is space and that's about it.
Time.
Yeah, and then time,
Space and time.
space and time.
Space and time.
Space and time. I know.
The only limitations really for anything. Space and time.
Also, doing it that way also allows me to, you know, I never got married, don't have children. I travel a lot. You know, the only pets that I have are really great plants. So being able to be mobile is really important to me. So, and yet at the same time creating and doing these things as well. So.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, it seems like your whole sort of culinary education came from being able to travel and interact with other people. So it's like, lets you keep growing. Awesome. So, other than your gastronomic pursuits, what else do you guys do? Do you have any other projects you're working on? Any other interests?
I always have a project going on.
What else are you working on outside of
this?
the food sphere, food and drink sphere?
Right now, I'm recreating my garden. I've kind of had I live on 6th Avenue, so like I could deal with the normal traffic of everyday people. So I had a garden up front, which everybody kept messing with. I didn't mind, you know, there's still my peppers and stuff. I had plenty of them, but then they started breaking plants and stuff, so I decided to move to the back. So that's one of my projects right now. I always have something fermenting. Like we just did a Dalbach barrel cured corned beef for St. Patrick's Day. That came out really good. My sister, she owns, is partners with Baja Tierra, and they do Sonoran kimchi. So I'm always trying to get some like cheese or something in their fermentation box. I'm always bouncing around. I got a motorcycle project I'm about to be kicking off here pretty soon. Yeah, that's
sweet.
Yeah, finding the time
sounds awesome.
and space again.
Great. Time and space, the only limitations. What about you, Luoyi?
Well, let's see. Yeah, I was a beverage director for a restaurant here in Tucson up until the end of last year. I decided to take a couple months off, and that's what I did. During that time, I decided to go back, had an opportunity to help out Bear Joinery, which is the little woodworking shop that I've been helping out at for the better part of, I guess, the last 15 years or so. I'm just a secondary woodworker, so I just help out when necessary. But it was really nice for a moment to just be able to like focus, keep my head down, you know.
Cool.
With earbuds in, like, and not think about
the element of
anything
sound.
for a moment. Yeah. Besides that, it is. I don't have a particular plan at all.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, here's to the gypsy lifestyle.
Salud.
Salud.
Cheers.
Ooh, splashy, splashy. Well, it's been so lovely. Speaking with you, I think that's all the time we have for today. We've been speaking with Luoyi and Mo, two super awesome Tucson gastronomical geniuses. You've been watching Goodnight, Goodhart. Stay creative, Tucson.